Dear writer, you need to quit. This is the show that helps you know what to quit, what to keep, and what to question. My name is Becca Syme, and I'm a Gallup certified strengths coach with thousands of hours of coaching 6 and 7 figure authors, mid-listers, major award winners, and new authors alike because everyone needs to quit something. Anyone can tell you what worked for them, and of course, they say it might not work for you, but they can't tell you why. Well, I can tell you why. Welcome to the Quitcast. Hi, and welcome to episode 38 of the Quitcast. Today, we're going to be talking about another of our strengths for writers. And again, if you are not familiar with the Clifton Strengths Assessment, there's some links in the show notes about that. But for now, I'm going to assume that you know and that you're here because you are interested in knowing more about how your Clifton Strengths can work for your writing. And we're going to cover consistency today. And so we're going to start off with Traci and Becca talking about what consistency looks like. So take it away, Traci and Becca. So people exceptionally talented in consistency are keenly aware of the need to treat people the same. And they crave stable routines and clear rules and procedures that everyone can follow. And this is very much the sort of like how adaptability was the name is the theme, right? Consistency is the theme. But there's this added wrinkle because the consistency used to have a different name. Like when I first heard of strengths, consistency was called fairness. And like that was the name of the strength trait because it's really like part of it is about procedural stuff, but a big part of it is about seeing that everyone is treated the same and that the rules are applied equally to everyone. And that's really kind of the core of the strength.
Right. And this is a fascinating one that you and I don't have. Well, we have it, but it's number 34. So what we've been learning is that if your number, you can use a lot of your stuff, but 30, 31, 32, they're pretty tough to even understand.
They're hard.
But we do have some, each of us know people who have number one consistency, which is really cool to see because then you see, and if you're number one consistency and you don't have adaptability, for instance, then think of someone who is adaptive, has it, and then you'll get a better appreciation for the talents or for the themes by doing that, because sometimes it's just too difficult to catch. So fairness, treating people properly, we see that a lot.
Well, and not just properly, right, though, but the same.
Fairly, the same.
Like specifically, they want to make sure that, like for instance, in the justice system, it bothers high consistency people that there are people in the justice system who are treated with exception, like who are treated with more mercy than other people. And it bothers them that there are people who are treated with less mercy than other people. And they don't like the fact that justice is supposed to be blind. The scales are supposed to be equal. And that's something that consistency people care about.
And if you're a writer, what kind of things are important to keep in mind?
So procedures is definitely something that comes up a lot when you listen to consistency people talk. They have a path that they follow that's very specific. And it's interesting because I think there are some very prominent, let's call them gurus in the writing world who have this particular trait. And you could hear it in their language. Like they sort of get offended when you don't follow this very specific path towards the way that something happens. And it's partly a strength trait of theirs, right? It's something that those are the kinds of people who make the procedures that we can all follow that work for most people, right? For maybe not everybody, like no procedure works for everyone, but of course Traci and I both have high individualization. And so that's kind of the opposite of consistency in a lot of ways, where individualization is the customizers. They want to treat everyone as a unique individual. And there is a sameness in that, right? Like there's a consistency to that.
But I can see that if you use the analogy of cooking, for instance, consistency is important, and everyone can follow a recipe and create a dish that looks very much the same.
Today we have 3 top 5 consistency writers on our Strengths for Writers talk show. And we're going to start off with introductions, and I want to tell you a little bit about them before we get into the discussion of how consistency can work for writers. Rachel Goodman is a multi-published author. She is a romance author and also writes cozy mystery. And Traci Andrighetti is also a cozy mystery author. And we also have Megan Ryder. And so I'm going to leave some links to their platforms in the show notes if you're interested in learning more about them. And the primary reason that they're here today is that they are all high in consistency. We had a great time on the talk show. And so let's let them tell us a little bit about how consistency works for them and what it looks like in writers.
I think that's actually a really good definition, because it's really looking at everybody you talk to or looking at the whole situation. I actually call a lot of it devil's advocate. I'm probably the worst person to sit into the middle of like a political discussion or any kind of situation, because I'm going to sit there and probably play both sides of the coin and say, yeah, I understand that side. I understand that side. I understand that side. And I know that a lot of people have said to me, well, you sound very wishy-washy on the issues, because you're seeing the benefits in all the sides. I'm like, well, I can see where each side is coming from. It doesn't mean I don't have an opinion, but you start to understand, and you're very almost empathetic to all the sides, because you're trying to bring them all together, and try to make sure that everybody has their time to say something, and treat them all, listen to them all, and treat them all with some form of respect, and try to listen to everybody equally.
Consistency for me is very much about say what you mean and mean what you say. And then for me, I use rules, policies, standards to enforce that idea of say what you mean what you say. Because there's no point saying something and meaning it if you're not backing it up with something. And so, yeah, it's about fairness. It's about treating everyone equally. I'm not so much like Megan, where I will play devil's advocate. I usually have an opinion, but I always try to hear the other person's opinion. And then my consistency comes out a lot with different groups of people. So like, I'll be consistent with this group, but I won't necessarily apply the same rules to this group over here. So like, in my professional life, I'm a professor and I treat all of my students the same way, but that's not necessarily the same as like maybe like personally how I would treat like my mom or my husband or something like that.
You know, it's funny. I definitely relate to the definition of fairness, and I am somebody who is just outraged when things are not fairly applied, say at work or in the home. But for me, when I think of consistency, and in fact, when I discovered it was number 5 on my top strengths, I kind of laughed, because I am very much a procedure sort of like policy person. We have to establish this. We have to set these ground rules. We have to live by these rules. This is the right way. It's the fair way. So for me, I think of it more in terms of my schedule and how I conduct my day and my week, and less sort of in terms of how I apply it to other people.
Because for a consistency person, it's not just, well, we have rules and you should follow the rules. It's like the rules are there for a reason. We made the rules for a reason, and we apply them for a reason. And when they're unfairly applied, that creates inequality and it creates unfairness. And that's not okay, right? So like a lot of high consistency people are very frustrated.
I will die on that hill.
Yeah, exactly.
I will die on that hill too. Rachel, I'm with you.
The people who don't have high consistency who listen to this are going to be like, I don't get why they're so excited about this stuff, right? Because like
it's the most exciting thing to do.
Yeah, and yet for high consistency people, this is like part of the gift that you give. Yeah.
Well, and for me, it's beyond that. For me, it's also a matter of integrity.
Yeah.
Yes,
I follow the process because I'm a college professor. I'm also an advisor, and if I let one student into my major because I gave them an exception, but I didn't do that for the other 140 of them, Where is my
Yeah.
integrity? So for me, it's also, it's not
Absolutely.
just following a procedure. It's ensuring that our requirements are met. It's ensuring that every graduate graduates from our program had to meet the same standards, take the same classes. It's for me, it's also it's an integrity thing as well. It
Yeah,
allows me
I
to
agree.
have something to follow and be like and feel like I feel okay with this decision of saying. And it's hard to say no to students, for me anyway, to be like,
Yeah.
I understand your situation, but I can't treat you differently. And it sucks sometimes so much to be that bad guy, but I feel it's an integrity thing for me.
Yeah. So what's really fascinating to me about this is there's kind of two pieces of consistency when it comes to how it applies to writers. And one is really that environmental stability and having things be consistent for you and feeling like the things are well and right in the world and everything is okay and good to go is a benefit to your being able to accomplish writing.
Yes.
And you guys are all nodding at that. I'm assuming that's
tremendously
well, yeah,
so.
because it's schedule, it's environmental, it's schedule, and it's also writing ritual. It's all
Yes.
three.
Yeah, it's all three.
Process.
And so it's so it's process, it's schedule. So like, you know, Traci, you were saying how like you have your schedule set for the day. I'm the same way. And so
Me too.
and part of for Traci, for you and I, because we both share focus, that is heightened because of that, because we both share focus.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's schedule, it's writing ritual. And Becca, you once said to me during a one-on-one call about it's like the premise thing about I want to be a faster writer. And you were like, but do you? And I've learned that my consistency means that I will always be slow. I am meticulous.
Yes.
It has to be perfect. I reread things 100 times. My environment is set up right. And so I've learned for me, for consistency is not just the process. It's just the process that I follow, and my process is slow. And part of that means I always have to have a cup of coffee or whatever, but it's also just the process itself of my writing. I'm never going to be fast. And I've finally learned to accept that.
Yeah. I wanted to say something about that. That is the biggest gift that Becca's class gave to me. So I had heard from every writer I met, like, oh no, like stop. You just have to stop worrying about it. Stop trying to make it perfect. You just need to let it go and write those words. And I was like, no, I can't.
I don't know how. I literally don't know how.
I literally, the thought gave me tremendous anxiety. I was like, no. I have my process and it has to be perfect. And I have to have it how I want it before I can go on. So I cannot do the stream of consciousness writing. Sounds like my worst nightmare. So taking that class and finding out that this was just a trait of my personality, and so of course I wouldn't be able to write that way, was a tremendous relief. And I could finally stop signing up for NaNoWriMo and all of those things that made me so anxious and feel so bad about myself because I just couldn't do it. So that was the gift. It released me from what felt like a burden. Sprint. Oh my God. No, I don't want to sprint.
No.
No.
Well, it's funny you should say that, Traci, because you talked earlier about a process. So I had said earlier that I'm a big plotter. And one of the things I got out of Becca's class is I need to do my plot. And what I have a plotting group, and they're a wonderful group. They don't plot as detailed as I do, and I need that plot. If I don't have that plot, I really struggle. I hit that barrier on page 1 and I'm done. I can sit for 6 months and never write a book. I don't care how many deadlines I have, how much schedule, how much process I follow. I'm done. I need I'm a strong I in my Myers-Briggs, and I need that thought time, and that's what my plot does for me. But they very gently said you need to move outside your process. Consistency, that's the other thing we said earlier, is the whole schedule and your process and your writing routine. So they strongly suggested let's just push a little bit. So this past year I did a little bit like you did. Maybe I don't need all that detail, even though I thought I did, but let me try a little bit of shifting. I got midway through a book and my publisher changed the whole book at one point too. It was a bad year for me. And I 3 books I did like this. I am never doing that again. Okay. 3 books. It was a nightmare. No. I need my process, and it's very rigid. And that's the one thing that consistency does have I don't want to say it's a problem, but we can get a little resistant and rigid on our process. It must be this way. But when I get my process, I can fly through a book, but I have to have my process.
That's the key for me about consistency, is if you honor the process, you can go faster. Like you can increase and you can make up time, and you can like get 750 words in a sitting instead of 700, right?
Yeah.
But like it's not going to go to 5,000 or something like that. And that's the key, is like the rigidity is often seen as a negative trait, right? Like we think of being rigid as being bad, but you need some things to be rigid. The boards that hold up your house had better be rigid, or you're gonna be
it is
like living in a pile, right?
For me.
And to Megan's point a little bit as well, is one thing you said to me during the Write Better Faster, and to Traci's point as well, was you talked about, I'm always going to be slow. I'm always going to be meticulous. It's my process. So instead of worrying about how many words I'm putting on a page in a sitting, worry about how much time is spent in the manuscript.
Yep.
So even though I might sit there and I might only get 200 words out in literally 6 hours, please don't judge me right now. Because I'm reworking and reworking and reworking, but like I can say that I was in that scene. I'm happy with how it looks. And so like that's progress for me, instead of, I've got friends who are like, my progress today was 10,000 words. And I'm just like, I can never, I don't even know how that's possible. So part of my consistency is, part of that process is recognizing it's actually time spent in the manuscript and less about what I accomplished, I guess.
That's a good way to look at it, actually.
It is.
Yeah. And I think too, a piggyback off of that is that like, there are some parts that will be faster for you depending on other strengths that you have. Like, especially if you had something like intellection or something like that, like you might actually have some days where you're writing a consistently fast pace, and then places where you're going slower. And that's why we were talking about doing time, is because it's so dangerous to feel like the good days are the 1,000-word days and the bad days are the 200-word days. But for the high consistency, like there are certain strengths that are lower in the overall. So if you rank writers in 1 to 34, consistency is near the bottom. This is part of why I love doing these particular talk shows, is because you can see like it's possible to be a great writer and not have the strengths that a lot of writers have. It's possible.
So back to that, Becca, can I interrupt you? Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, you were talking about being a great writer, and I don't know about Megan and Traci, but for me, part of my consistency, not only this process, it comes out and, okay, I knew that I wrote a great book once, and now I have the consistency standard, and I have to stick with that from every other book I write from then on.
Same.
So it's not, even if it's a different genre, like, so there's also that from like book to book, that consistency, like you want your voice to be the same, you want your quality of writing to be the same, you want the like character depth to be the same, all of that kind of stuff. And so
see, for me, I keep trying to strive for better. I keep trying to go better and better because I'm like, I'm always looking for that. And that's why I struggle with, because I'm looking to go indie this year, struggling very hard with the whole mantra of, Traci, I think you said it earlier, just get it on the page, just get it out there. I cannot do that because I'm looking for that. It's that you valuing that integrity, and there's, not that I'm saying indie books are not good, because I'm not saying that. I think they are very good, and I've done some indie books and I think they're very good, but I can't follow that model that they say that you just get them out there. I'm never going to write a book a month, a book every 2 months. It's going to be every 5 months for me if I'm lucky. And it's going to be hard for me to match that model. And, you know, I'm always going to be looking to keep pushing higher and higher.
But again, this is what's really cool about having the individualization perspective also, is that that's only one model of success in indie publishing, the book a month model, right? Like there are multiple models of success. They're less, so if you think of the models for success, and I break them down in the next book that I'm doing into 4 different models, but they do follow a pyramid where the majority of the success happens for the people who release a book a month, you know, not just a book a month, but who release quickly. Right. And the least amount of success, super successful people are in that top tier, which is release whenever you feel like it. Not that you're being arbitrary, but just like Like you could release one book a year. And there are people who are making a significant amount of money, and they're not just outliers. There are a significant number of people who are doing this. It's just that the model for that bottom of the pyramid is not a consistency place. Like you will not flourish down there as a consistency person if you try. You're much better in the top two tiers somewhere.
Definitely.
So
Interesting.
yeah,
That makes sense.
I this conversation helps me so much too, just personally. This is why I encourage everybody to listen to every strength podcast.
Absolutely.
Is because even if you don't have this trait, you get to hear it from other writers who are really strong in it, and it can help you understand other people that might be in your life. Like honestly, one of my biggest frustrations is people who give advice unilaterally, who just say like, oh, step outside your comfort zone and just do, like that kind of thing. Like unilateral advice is
It doesn't
never
work.
Right. It never works for everybody. It might work for 68% of the people, the standard deviation, right? But it's not going to work for 100. And so what do we do with that other 32%? Hopefully I'm doing that math right. 32% of people, right? It's like there has to be another model. So yeah, I love that. The second part of consistency for writers, which is interesting. So I know at least Rachel and Traci write cozy and have some element of law and justice in their books. And so Megan, do you have an element of that as well in yours?
Well, it's interesting, especially as I was preparing for this, but as I'm moving and shifting a little bit, I was working on some branding recently and talking with a friend of mine about my brand, and she brought up a very interesting point to me that she said, through all of your books, you have a very strong core of honor and integrity. And she said, you should really bring up and start pulling through all of your books and through your branding, the core of, like, we were starting to play with the term honorable hearts or something like that for a branding statement or integrity. She said, because your characters they're not that strong alpha male, but they're very, they have this strong, rigid core of integrity. And as I'm going through consistency, I'm like, that's where it comes from. It's coming from this strong consistency, strength here that is, I do write some suspense, and I've written some cozies.
Oh, nice.
I've published a couple of cozies, and I'm working on a suspense, but I'm like, it's because I have this strong sense of integrity that my characters have to have this very, very strong sense of that I think that's where it all comes from. So I never even thought about that until I was preparing for this podcast.
Same.
Well, and in a standout writer sense, where we talk about how do you stand out and be known for something, this is a great way to think about that, is that there are certain key words that you guys will use in conversation without even thinking about it, just because you are so high in consistency. And the cool thing is that some of those words actually cross over with people like high responsibility, high belief, high achiever, high focus. And so you're going to appeal to a broad swath of the market when you write certain types of characters, because you write them from a consistency point of view, and you're going to appeal to that type of person in a way that other authors won't be able to, because they can't get on the inside of what that feels like to be that person.
If you're interested in learning more about consistency, I highly recommend that you check out the Gallup Theme Thursday podcasts that have to do with this strength. They do such a great job, of course, because they are the content holders, the content creators, of talking about these. And so please do check them out. We'll leave some links for you in the show notes. A couple of quick things. We hit 100 patrons for our QuitCast Patreon channel. And we're going to have a live all patron Q&A. So if you are a current subscriber to the Patreon channel, we're going to do a live Q&A on Zoom where you get to come on and ask questions and submit questions to be asked. So please check that out on the Patreon channel. Additionally, there are more announcements on the Patreon channel, even just for followers. We try to announce everything possible there on the Patreon channel. And the third big announcement is that we are heading into the second season of the QuitCast pretty soon. We have one more episode before the season ends, And we have season 2 kickoff, which we're going to do a live show. The announcement hasn't been made yet about the time specifically, but on the next QuickCast, we will announce the time of that live show and the date. It's going to be early February, the first week in February, so we can do a kickoff, but we're coming to a close on the first season. And it's been so fun to get to see and talk and interact with so many of you. I really appreciate your comments and your interaction. And so please, if you think of it, like and share this video, follow the Patreon channel, follow the YouTube channel, make sure that you're connected. We have a plan to finish the rest of the 34 Strengths for Writers shows like this one today in the next year. And so we're really looking forward to be talking about their strengths. And so please stay connected here. Our plan for year 2 is to do obviously more Strengths for Writers talk shows. We are going to also be doing some explorations of characters that have strengths, top 5 strengths. And so we'll be talking about some fictional characters and their strengths. We do that a lot around here, and just the connections that we make. We love to talk about who might have what. And so we have some surprise character breakdowns. We're going to do what we call a fictional top 5 for a fictional character, and that's going to be the kickoff of season 2. And so we look forward to you joining us for that. Again, there will be an announcement about the date and the time in the next QuickCast. And so we look forward to seeing you there, and happy writing, and I hope you have a great week. Bye.